Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It's 1:04 p.m. on Tuesday, February the 10th, 2026. Welcome to the regular meeting of the North Core, the Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee. This meeting will be recorded and be made available for public viewing, so please be aware that comments made will end up part of our final upload on YouTube. I have not received any disclosures of pecuniary interest, but will remind everyone to declare if one does arise through the meeting. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe. Colonial culture and relationship with our lands and waters are simply not the same as that of our First Peoples. I remain committed to a life of learning in order to better understand that which may not come naturally to me. We all share a responsibility to be stewards of not just our own land, but of our communities at large. So moving into the meeting, I'm looking for a mover for an amended agenda to include a submission from Molly Moldovan. That's moved by Ian, seconded by Janet. All those in favor? That is carried.
We can boing from Ruth Ann.
She had raised her hand.
No. So we'll move right into our deputations then. And Molly, you said that you wish to speak.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess I'll kind of.
Maybe try the other one and see if we. Right, like the other one will work.
Your email system doesn't like me, your microphones don't like me.
I'm not seeing any wired things.
Maybe they're not connected to anything.
Are they battery powered? Oh,
There we go.
Thank you.
Press that. What are we going to do? Is that you? You'll find me.
Okay, so since the last meeting, I've been like really super busy with the other portions of my life. So I haven't had time to do an in-depth dive into the draft document that was produced. But I did have time to put out a very informal survey on Facebook, which was taken down from the Chandos Ratepayers Association Facebook group after a day. But elicited quite a few responses via Messenger in that time. I think that Connie has emailed that document. I put together a document. There were 9 people who wished to go on record, although only 3 of them were happy to have their names attached to their comments. So this is something that I brought up at the last meeting, is that people do not want to go on record with authorities when they are unhappy or make complaints. And that is borne out in every one of these responses. Is that one of my questions was, were you aware that there is a complaint system, a formal complaint system? And the response was overwhelmingly no. And then the next question was, if you were aware of it, did you or would you avail yourself of it? And the answers were all no. Nobody wanted to engage with it. Nobody thought that it would be effective. And the same thing with calling the OPP. One of the responses was that they'll tell you to self-report online. Others said that they're not going to come out. They have better things to do with their time. So it takes me right back to where I began, which is that this cannot be, we cannot make, or we should not be making recommendations to council for a system that is driven by complaints. Because it will simply not happen. It needs to be top down, regulation needs to be in place. One person referenced Muskoka, which no longer seems to have issues because the fines levied are $10,000 per incident. And that the fines are also covering the cost of a bylaw officer. So if the township takes this seriously enough to make the fines meaningful, to make the penalties meaningful, it can perhaps not fund itself, but it can certainly be, economically feasible, especially if that bylaw officer takes on other, roles such as, dog infractions. Which I'm sure we're paying something toward. So I don't really have a lot to say. If you've read the document, I don't have to read it to you. I don't have to take up your time with that. But most respondents were unaware of existing formal complaint systems for addressing bylaw infractions related to STRs. While some indicated a willingness to use these systems, there was skepticism about their effectiveness, particularly for late night disturbances. One of the respondents mentioned that rather than call the OPP or complain to the township, she stayed up until 3:30 in the morning to make sure that the fire was put out. There was an oversized bonfire, and that she regularly endures noise until 3 o'clock in the morning from the Airbnb next door, which kind of mimics my situation. So I can totally relate. I think that these recommendations that have come out of this group are very focused on a way of making some regulatory avenues financially feasible for the township. And somewhere in all of this load of bureaucracy, we're losing sight of the fact that that the situation as it stands right now is impacting people's lives. It's impacting their well-being, it's impacting their peace of mind, it's impacting their enjoyment of their properties. People live here for a reason. One respondent actually moved away. She was on Julian Lake and was sharing deeded water access with I think 9 other properties. And one of those was an Airbnb, and it completely took over the lakefront, and people were just starting to move away because the reason they had moved there had vanished. And I think many of us who are transplantees from Toronto and other cities have moved here because of the peaceful surroundings, the fact that it was the antithesis of city living. And yet now we're surrounded by resorts at very close quarters. It's not why we're here. So does anybody have any questions for me if you've read this document?
I'm concerned when you said that the posting was taken down on the Chandos site.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine sent me a question, I think on Friday, and it seemed to be on a different posting for concerned citizens of.
There's a Facebook group, Concerned Citizens. I posted it there. I posted it in the Chandos group. I posted it on the Apsley Community Connections, and I just posted it on my own feed. So anybody who follows me because of my artwork or any other reasons would have seen it. So I didn't ask people where they actually saw the posting, but the ones who responded to me via Facebook Messenger noted that they could not find the post any longer on the Chandos site, and when I went there, it had been taken down. But subsequent discussion about the fact that it had been taken down was left up. So.
And at the end of the day, it's the CLPOA's prerogative. As someone that controls their own Facebook page, you understand that there's community rules. And again, I would certainly hope the community rules were applied the same to you as anybody else, but that is well out of the committee's control, out of what happens on that Facebook page.
Oh, absolutely. I only mentioned it as a point of interest that it seems that there is some reluctance to have this discussed openly in certain areas. And I mentioned after the post was taken down, I mentioned within the group that the moderator of a different group, I'm aware that, sometimes the moderators err on the side of caution in avoiding controversy. But I was very careful to not breach any of the rules of the group. The post was neither political nor religious, nor really, nor should it have been considered contentious. It was seeking information. That's all.
I did have a chance to actually look at a few places that it was posted, and even outside of what was officially sent through, there was good variety of information put in the actual comment section as well. But being Facebook comments, I wasn't going to screenshot them and add them to our agenda. But I thank you for compiling this, and it is sort of nice to see that it's again, I never thought it was just you. But having more voices behind you certainly helps an argument. So thank you for going through and doing this.
Well, I didn't want to be the Karen, you know.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this again. I'm echoing Colin. Is there anything here that's different than the survey we did about a year ago? Anything that strikes you as different than some of the
Yes.
results?
I don't think the survey addressed questions of a complaint system and who was aware of it and that it existed, and whether people would be reluctant to engage with it or why they would be reluctant to engage with it.
And I think luckily they could be added very easily as just considerations, because these are two things that are beyond our scope. But two things that I noticed going through this, one was the comment with voyeurism and drones. And that is something that I've seen shared across the municipality before this. So it's something just to consider. I don't think it's short-term rental specific, so it's not something that we would say needs to be regulated specifically for this, but would be a consideration for council based on input gathered. That's something I've seen a few times, but again, saw in this document here. And then the boating safety, which is not our jurisdiction, and the laws are pretty sort of hard to enforce as is.
We're at the top when you need them.
Well, exactly. Like it's a very rare situation that there's ever going to be a boat on the lake at the time, seeing what's going to happen. So it's something that is a consideration for education, because that's something I think was I remember from the survey even. So if we're seeing it bookended on both ends, it's clearly important to members of the community. Those were my thoughts based on the information. Shane?
Just one quick comment. As I read through it, I haven't had a chance to read through it twice, but I did read through it once. I'm not seeing anything new that either came out of the original survey. So that kind of validates the original survey. Sample sizes are quite a bit different, but aside from that, I don't see anything new. With respect to the complaint process question, I believe that we did consider that as a committee, and that is noted in the recommendations. So again, I'm not seeing, for me anyway, I'm not seeing anything new here that sort of jumps out.
Was there anything in the responses to the original survey indicating that people would not engage with complaint system? Or that they had a reluctance to engage with authority?
It seemed apparent. I can't quote it to you because I don't have it from it, but it seemed apparent there was a discomfort with it, if not an outright reluctance.
There was such a disconnect between the number of respondents and the issues they presented and the number of formal complaints that we heard. And stuff.
Okay.
then the only other thing, sorry, Ruth Ann, have you had a question through this and raised your hand and I haven't seen it?
You know, it's all good. Thank you.
Because of the efforts made, and actually maybe be asking Connie about the legality or appropriateness of this. If we redacted the names, can we include this with the submissions? And we've got a list of submissions and documents that were considered with our final recommendations and just have this added.
Certainly, yeah, if that, excuse me, if that's the wish of the committee, we can add that to the final recommendations.
I know that I'm only pulling tiny little pieces out of here, but I do appreciate all the effort that was put into it, so I don't want to see it completely disappear. Are members of the committee open to that?
I'm comfortable. I would like a sentence or two added to talk about the scope. That was posted online. It was only up for a couple of days. Because people might look at it and say there's only 9 responses. Well, there's a reason for that. Just.
Yeah.
If we're okay to just put some scope.
I wish I would have had more time to put more effort into it, but I was writing 2 simultaneous grant applications, one of which is still unfinished, and reviewing contracts and, you know, my other life.
Yep.
Totally understand, but it's good information as is, so much appreciated. I'd be looking for motion to receive the deputation. Moved by Shane, seconded by Janet, all those in favor. That is carried. Before moving out of deputations, John,
I'm good right now,
you're good.
but I may want to say something again, okay?
I'll skip right over that. Adoption of the minutes from the January 26th meeting. Any comments?
No comment.
Ian, seconded. Shane, all those in favor? That is carried. And then I'm okay going B1, B2, but if our economic development officer is open to coming and giving us, I believe it's gonna be a fairly brief report. I think it would be good to have that done before our final recommendations, before we approve the final recommendations and then find something out afterwards. So are you able to? give us
Yeah,
a
I can
report?
just verbally that there's, after discussions with the other township, that there's no pending changes to any other S tier that have been programs or anything on at this time.
Yeah, no, perfect. Again, I sort of had a sneak peek on that one and knew that's what's coming, but I think it gives us some peace of mind having that information before going through our final recommendations. So I guess motion to receive the verbal report from the economic development officer. Moved by Janet,
Longer to record the vote.
seconded by Shane, all those in favor, that is carried. Okay. Pleased to see that the recommendations of the committee have been incorporated, at least in my mind. But I wanted it brought back one final time. I think it's a good idea to take a final peek, but I also certainly wanted Janet to be part of a meeting when we're doing our final recommendation. I think you should have 5 out of 5 if at all possible. So any thoughts or comments?
I don't really want to wordsmith at this point. There's one awkward sentence, but I think it's fine. It doesn't read well, but it's just a message across.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then we'll come back to that. So we can at least have some points on the board for the meeting, but again, I thought it was pretty well incorporated generally.
Yeah.
Not actually seeing any comments, so yeah, that's a very good sign. Yeah,
Can I
John.
ask a quick question? I printed 2 copies. On one, it's just the original recommendations with no little side notes. Like complaints, process launched, was updated to website for, which is the one that I should be looking at? Are these just little typos or grammatical errors, grammatical changes that were made?
Connor?
I made through the chair. So the one you're looking at with the comments.
Yeah.
That was a copy that went to staff to just add some of their comments for consideration. Those were considered by the committee. And now they're looking at the final version of that.
Be the one with the comments.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you, very fine, appreciate it.
And John, did you have anything, like, it's.
No,
I'm not trying to rush you, just I think we're actually getting to the point where this is gonna be approved, so I wanna make sure that you have a chance to speak if you wanna say
Yeah, I don't wanna
something.
hold you up, so let me just, grab my notebook here. I'll say a few things. Testing, okay. I think in the very beginning, I appeared before this committee, at its outset, and I provided you with some documentation with regards to contracts that I have used in the past. And I think one of my statements, if I was to go back and be able to look at it, I specifically said that this is all can be resolved or can be looked at from an enforcement perspective. This basically all comes down to an enforcement perspective. And I think what I've read in your recommendations is that that's the route that we're going to go in initial stages. To a large degree, short-term rental explosion can be attributed to a very large degree to COVID. Everybody was locked up. It was a way to get out. Property values. It was a sort of a play on property values where people were buying up cottages to escape, and now they're not buying cottages because there is no more escape and prices have sort of gone through the roof. I specifically said that the number of complaints didn't warrant the extent of which the committee was looking at. I worked with Connie and with Kelly Picken, and it really hasn't changed. The number of complaints do not measure up to the length of, or to the degree of what the committee was talking about, nor other people were considering based on that. I said at another meeting that for those that are experiencing the type of quote unquote issues that are unresolved with regards to partying and that nature, no different than what I've done is that I filmed, I recorded, okay? And I spoke to my neighbor or to the person that it was. I was spoken to once because we had a guest, not a renter, but a guest that had a jet ski that was bombing around in the bay. And my neighbor called and said, "John, is that yours?" I go, "I think so." I said, he goes, "Well, could you ask him to stop?" I go, picked up the phone, made the call. Either you stop with the jet ski or I'm going to ask you to leave. It stopped. Okay, for the most part. I know that that's not the case all the time. I realize that. But that's where bylaw enforcement comes in. Okay, and I know that at 11 o'clock at night, it's probably not going to happen because the bylaw enforcement's not there. But that doesn't preclude the person that's being infringed upon to make the recording. It has a timestamp. If I record something on my iPhone, it has a date and the time that it was recorded. To Molly's point, with regards to they don't know, if you don't know that you can complain, then what kind of property owner are you? That's your property. You should know what the bylaws are. That's a fallacy. That's a cop-out to me. As an owner, you didn't know that you can complain. That just doesn't wash. And for the issues that I've heard Molly speak about on her particular issue with a person or a property owner that has, then the township needs to follow up on it and follow up with due diligence in a very strict way. If this supposed property is a ghost hotel that is out of control, then it needs to be dealt with. I would hazard that 90 to 95% of property owners, so I can only speak of Shandos, I can't speak for everyone else because I'm not on those lists, are responsible property owners. I would hazard to say that some of the noise complaints probably come from people that actually don't rent. They're actually people that have cottages. I mean, case in point, you have a get together, and I raised this issue, I think, with building. How many people have cottages and had more than 10, 12 guests there just as an event? Should we call the bylaw enforcement to come because there's 30 people there for 3 hours? It happens. We all know it happens. Okay, it does. You have a birthday party or an anniversary. It transpires. Again, I truly believe that a lot of the issues that have arisen from the short-term rentals can be addressed by bylaw enforcement, by subtle changes, maybe during the peak season of July, August, September. And I've seen people now renting in June, July, August, September. Maybe during the real peak season, which is July and August, that is a minimum 7-day rental. I can only speak for myself. I only have families. I don't have the 20+ crowd coming up there to bomb it up on a weekend. I just don't do it. First of all, I look at the ages. I had one that was 21 to 23. I go, thanks, guys, but that's not going to happen. Okay. I have a property that I value, that I look after, that I take care of. And the people that I've had come stay with me, I've never had to charge them extra for cleaning because they know I will charge them. And it's written in my contract. If you read it, and I'm sure hopefully you have, it's pretty thorough and to the point. I appreciate the work that you did. I think I said this before. I think we could have got to this point a lot sooner. I understand that you're doing your due diligence and trying to find out what every county or township, whatever they want to be called, was doing. But I think we had got to this point a lot sooner. Okay? That doesn't take away from the work that you did. It's appreciated. And the post that you talked about was up for one day. I saw it, but it was up on many other pages for more than one day. It was up for numerous days. Okay? And I would say that a lot of people would not want to lay credence to the fact that they don't want to get involved. Okay? For those people that say I don't want to, expose myself, well, it's your property. If you don't want to expose yourself, then you're going to have to suffer the wrath of what goes on. If you're really proud of what you have and want to, then you speak up, because it's not going to stop unless you find a way to go and try to have a mutual solution where, hey, Mr. X, you rent the property and there's constant partying going on. And I really don't want to resort to calling by law, but the next time it happens, I'm going to. And if people don't do that, I have no problem. If my neighbor did it, I don't care what they say, what they think, whether they think I'm a bad neighbor because I'm complaining about them. The onus is on the people to actually report the complaints. Period. Hard stop. Nothing else. If you don't do it, then you really have no right to really say anything, because you're part of the problem, not the solution, if you're not speaking. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Agree. Molly, I understand that you probably disagree with some of the stuff that John said, but I'm sure John disagreed with some of the stuff that you said, and rather than turning this into a back and forth, we've got your opinion, we've got John's opinion, and we'll process it here. So we'll just not move into sort of, again, back and forth between deputations, but does anyone have any questions of John? I see that he moved to the back already, but.
No, I'll be happy to answer. We're back up if you have.
None here.
Okay. Don't see the hand on Zoom over there. Yeah.
Are you generally in agreement with the results of the recommendations?
I do. I think it's a watch before you run. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't resolve any of the issues, then we have to reconsider next steps.
Okay.
I have no problem with that at all.
Oh,
Move to adopt.
I was gonna say, somebody gets to have their name on the entire works, the entire 3-year process here. Who wants to move it?
Oh, I'll do that.
Yeah, moved by Shane. Seconded by Janet.
Sure, all in favor.
All in favor. That is carried. And there's no businesses arising from notices of motion or correspondence, closed meeting bylaws. And we don't have anything set for the next meeting, but I do believe there was consideration that we weren't gonna dissolve the committee. But we'll just not set a next date as of now, but Shane, we can.
Yeah, just maybe you were getting to this, and I apologize if I jumped the gun a little bit, but what are sort of next steps now that we've
I
put
was gonna
final,
just ask the same thing.
we've put final approval to this document? Does it go to council or to, I guess you, Connie, to make the agenda for council? Is that, or do we have to specifically ask for that?
So it would be, at least the process that I see that would make sense, but Connie can interrupt me if I'm messing this one up. Would be for council to at least receive the document. Council is obligated by the terms of reference to have an open house. That would be done before any approval. So this isn't the absolute last time that people are going to be able to give their input. It's just the last time for input to the committee. And then after that open house, final decisions would be taken and based on what council decided, we would be moving forward. But it's difficult to say exactly what it would look like, not knowing what council's approved. Connie?
I would say that is correct, yes.
Is it fair to say this hits the agenda of the next council meeting? Or
I would think so, just for
what's next,
receiving, but
16th or something?
Yeah, if I may through the chair, so the next meeting is February, I think it's the 17th, so we have to look at that, the 17th. And we have already had our meeting on that agenda. So it would fall to the CAO to consider whether to add that, but typically we would put it forward with a brief staff report and include terms of reference and any additional information that we think council may need to consider it. So it may not be till the first meeting in March.
okay.
We'll have a look at that and see what we could
Is
do.
it a process question?
Was sort of, I'm just wondering what kind of timeline we'd be looking at for that open house from council.
That would be up to council. But I would suspect that they would want to take a close look at the timing of that to gain the most interest. So,
So before the next election, perhaps?
oh yes, I would think so if they decide they want to go ahead with an open house.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'd be, like, I can only speak for myself here, but I'd probably be recommending one of the long weekends in the spring, like May 24th. And that's pushing it further, so actually, May 24th probably gives sufficient time to actually get something prepared, but also have a good crowd up here. So that would be my personal thought as a member of council.
You don't think it would be counterproductive because people will be entertaining and have cottages full of visitors and friends?
That's gonna be an issue no matter when. That'll be, if we wait till July, in the middle of July, it's hard to get people off their dock at 11 o'clock in the morning, so.
Yeah.
I would think that we'll gain the really interested folk one way or the other.
And it is black fly season, so, yeah.
And I'd also prefer to do it sooner rather than later, because if that's a step contingent on getting this all wrapped up in the end, then it's, yeah, I'd rather not wait till August, and then at that point, you're near the end of the election anyway, so it's just, it complicates things. So I like May 24th, but I can't promise anything because I'm only one vote.
Right.
A process question, so if it was to be added to the agenda for the 17th, do the materials go out for council's consideration on the Thursday before? And then what day would we as committee members be made aware of whether it was coming to that council meeting or the fall? I'm just thinking in terms of planning our schedule to attend in case there are questions.
I mean, to the chair, so typically we do our best to get the agenda by Thursday afternoon. Most times it is. If it's going to be considered on February 17th, we can certainly email committee members as soon as possible and provide a heads up. I think it'll be more likely the first meeting in March, and perhaps the CAO has some comments on that.
Yeah, I would think probably March 3rd would be, since we're pretty much set for this agenda and we want to just get all the documents together and put it in a packet with the staff report.
Is it better to have the members of this committee at that council meeting? Either in person or via Zoom? I was gonna ask if it was required, but is it,
So I
I
don't
don't
think
think it would be required.
it's not required, Connie.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just thinking then if it is the first meeting in March, would all of you be available then? That would be Tuesday, March 3rd. At 9:30, the meeting would start. It may not be till further on in the meeting, probably under business or boards and committees.
Yeah, that's it.
And I would say, you know, if you are available, it's helpful to have you in attendance in case there are questions, but the chair, of course, would be able to speak to all of it.
And I'll be there, Ruth Ann will be there. Looks like we've got two okays.
I'll be
Jen,
there virtually.
virtually, okay. I think, and I'm sorry that you won't be able to attend in person, but I think that's a pretty good attendance given the time frame that we're working with. So you're okay with that? Yeah, okay. And since we're gonna have a technical quorum, do we need to do anything?
You would be part of they would be part of the gallery, basically.
Okay,
You would
but we
be
wouldn't,
at the council table.
we wouldn't need before, I know this sounds silly, but I just wanna make sure we're doing everything correct here. We wouldn't need to host a meeting of this committee, because we're gonna have all 5 members of this committee working on something short-term rental related.
You mean at the council meeting?
Yeah,
I would say no, the
Okay.
committee would just be there in attendance. Similarly, if all of council is in attendance at an open house, you wouldn't be really furthering the business of the committee.
okay. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah.
And I guess we're looking for
Motion to adjourn,
motion to adjourn.
for the record.
Yeah,
Wow.
moved by Janet.
Does that feel historic?
Seconded by Ian, all those in favor. And that is carried. I think we got 3